Hey now, Rob here, Rob School of Music, and I am so excited to be hanging out with the legendary author of From Teacher to Coach, Mr. Mike, or I should say Michael Grande. I'm talking to you this guy. Oh, a complete legend. First of all, serial entrepreneur, incredibly successful guy, handsomest guy in the state of New Jersey, and author now. Welcome.
Hey, Rob, thank you so much. That was some introduction. I didn't pay anybody for this introduction, and I'm not sure about that handsomest guy. Maybe the guy with the biggest nose in New Jersey, but could be also the world, because I do have, as Italians, we have to admit we do have big noses.
It's how we let people know who we are. It's how we can.
What a way to start, right?
So, man, I'm so excited to have you here. I've followed ever since I pretty much got into the music school owner world. Your name was coming up from every angle, and I got to check out your school a couple of years ago, and just you're incredible at what you do from the marketing standpoint, from the educational standpoint, from the design standpoint. It's just hitting all the bases. And I think this book that you have coming out on Black Friday, which is probably around when you guys will be watching this video, so time to click that link below.
Right.
You just totally encapsulate, if that's the word. I got to make up one word every time, so I think that's the one I'm going to make up.
Encapsulate's a great word, actually.
All right, good. I'll take it. A perfect philosophy of how to educate people. So I'm going to let you sort of take the stage, tell us what the book is about, and then I'm going to ask you a few questions from there.
Sure. So thanks so much for having me. I think we really became friends, and we talk offline all the time. We actually even saw each other at the NAMM show this year. And, that whole thing with coach and teacher, we discussed, because you came out with a book, which was a great book, and you talk about a lot of great stories. I love the story. Yeah, this book shreds. And it was the story that I remember the most was when your dad threw the guitar outside of your house in your front yard. And I'm like, is he your favorite guy? Did something like that? You're like, yeah, man, it saved me. It changed everything. And so I was telling you, I was writing a book, and it was at the NAMM show. And I said, we have coaches. And when I came back from Rwanda, I figured it was not so much a cultural thing, it's a universal thing. And you said to me that day, you said, ever since you came with your definition of being a coach, I now call all of my now coaches who once were teachers, they're now coaches. And I use that term in my school. I was honored. I mean, I sat down and I said, I cannot believe somebody you're a big guy too. You're endorsed by Paul Reed Smith. You're a freaking amazing musician. You got a music school. You're doing it too. Got a great podcast. You had Steve Vai on your podcast, which I'm really jealous about.
I didn't pay for this. This is just mutual admiration here. Thank you.
Yeah. And, but when you have somebody in your space that's, on your same level, and you get that feedback, it's a rewarding feeling. So thank you so much. That really meant a lot to me. It meant the world to me, actually. So I guess the reason why I wrote this book, I always wanted to write a book, but I didn't know what that book's contents would be. I spent a lot of time in technology, but my love is music. So I experienced an amazing time in Rwanda, and that whole thing was, I think it's the whole universe, and I'm a firm believer in the universe, Rob. So in the book, I basically said I watch television shows that only geared to, I think the rich and famous, not to see what they're buying in Beverly Hills, but I want to know what they do for a living. And there was this beautiful woman, she was an actress in Beverly Hills buying a mansion. And they asked her what she did. And she's like, well, I built schools in Rwanda. And then the next statement was, I just built a music school. So I asked my wife to pause the television. I looked all over for her on the internet, found her. Her name was Mary Finaro. And she has this thing called OmniPeace. She's friends with Courtney Cox and Jennifer, all those, and Jennifer Aniston, all those famous people. And she built this beautiful music school. And I reached out to her, and she finally connected with me and said, hey, listen, I heard you do music. And I said, yeah, I do music. And I also have music schools. Would you happen to need any help? And she's like, well, I really do. I know nothing about music. So which led us to this amazing relationship where I built this curriculum. And she said, I've been trying for years to ask the Minister of Education to accept our program and put it in the schools of Rwanda so the whole country can learn the way we do things at Rwanda. So I said, I could put together a pilot, but I'm going to be doing it where I'm going to convert your teachers into coaches. And she's like, Mike, he's got a really strong personality, but there is no way they're going to get it. It's a different cultural experience. The moment you say the word coach, they're going to think it's a basketball game. I said, absolutely not. But if you're going to feel that way, then I won't be able to pursue, moving forward with you. So she gave me the leeway to do it. And I put together a pilot program and I flew out. And I got to tell you, they don't speak a lot of English. Very, very little do. But music is that international language. When they say it's an international language, I could tell you firsthand, it absolutely is an international language. So the first thing this Mary Fanaro says to me, she goes, "You're a crazy kid from Brooklyn, Mike. You can't, with your Italian, outgoing karma or character, you just can't, scare people because you get so animated. You're going to frighten these folks, and they're not like that here." So I said, "Mary, don't worry about it. I got it." So the first thing I do is I put a little stool in the middle of this hut. There's 16 people around this little hut and 3 almost like barbecue tables. Right? I stand up on this little stool, and now I'm like 10 feet tall, and I scream, "Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you all feel." And they looked at me. They said they feel intimidated. They feel small. And Mary's going, "I can't believe he's the first thing out of his mouth was he's screaming at these people. They look like they're in shock. He's asking them how they feel. They're intimidated. They're scared. They feel small." And I said, "That's how children look at you as teachers." I said, "Raise your hand if you're a teacher." And all 16 raised their hand. Then I said, "Raise your hand if you're a coach." And nobody did. And it was that moment. I was 6 days in Rwanda every day for 6 days that I had to go from becoming a teacher to become a coach with the most incredible experiences of my life, Rob. It was the most beautiful, touching moments that I've ever had. And I had to write this book. And when I came back, I said, it's not cultural. That's the first thing I want to say. Music, coaching, it's universal. If I can get these folks to understand how important it is to be a coach in somebody's life and not be a teacher. If I could do that in Rwanda where they don't even speak my language, it could be done anywhere. And that was the reason why I wrote the book. So I took this book as an opportunity to help music educators as well as educators in the school system. And my dad's a PhD, doctor of education, one of the smartest guys I know, ran the schools in Brooklyn, New York. And he said to me, "Michael, teachers focus on teaching kids, curriculums, 30 kids in a class, coaches are one-on-one, and it's sports." And I said, "Dad, I think you're wrong." So I took my experiences because I was a high school teacher in social studies. I taught in Brooklyn, New York. I said, I'm going to take my experiences in high school teaching and music and Rwanda, and each chapter will be a little part of my music experience, a little part of my Rwanda experience, and a little part of my teaching and high school experience. So you can see that it works in on every platform. That was a long-winded answer, but I hope you get it.
Absolutely. No. And it's something where I feel like this book and all the podcasts you've done and just sort of spreading this gospel, if you will, it's so incredibly valuable. I recently was put in a position where someone asked me, like, how do you identify yourself? What makes you you? You know, you take away all the guitars, you take away all the experiences, you take away, you know, the fancy watch, the tattoos. Who are you? And I said, I think I'm someone who likes to make people feel like they can do or be the best version of themselves. As a young kid, I was into martial arts and I was teaching karate classes. I thought I would own a karate school prior to music taking over my life. And now it's the music school. But
wow.
I think the perspective that you just articulated is in the core what makes a good educator. And I think that's what makes you think back, you know, you give this example, you know, think of the person who taught you to read versus someone that made you, whatever that you can do.
Yes, that's exactly, Rob, as you're talking.
Take that example because I'm going to run from it, but you tee it up.
Yeah, so my whole thing is I want to do a TED Talk. And the first things out of my mouth on a TED Talk is I want everybody to close their eyes and pretend that they just put themselves in a space where they have to remember the grade school teacher that taught them how to read. And you'll generally see that 90% to 95% of those folks will have no idea. And that 5% that might, they still have no idea. I mean, first grade, second grade, they don't even know. What's the name of that teacher? They'll spit out a name. But then you say, who was your favorite teacher in elementary school? Oh, mine was Mrs. Don. I never forget Mrs. Don. And it immediately comes to you. Now, you read every day. Yet you haven't probably thought of Mrs. Don. I haven't thought of Mrs. Don in ages, but I remember how I was treated. And I think the misunderstanding is that teachers that teach, people don't remember what you teach. They remember how you make them feel. Mrs. Don always made me feel great. She always put a smile on her face. If I forgot my homework, she'd tap me on the shoulder and say it was okay. And then you think about the people or the person or the teacher who taught you how to read. I have no idea. I could spit out names, but for the life of me, I really don't know. So to your point, you making people feel a certain way makes you a coach, Rob. So if there was going to be a definition between Rob being a teacher, Rob being a coach, I would say you wouldn't even have to know it. People would define you as a coach without you having to tell them that you're a coach.
Absolutely. And I think that's beautiful. And it's so factual. Like upon, reading this book, it made me think back into my life and just really like there's case studies from your whole experience. We're going to dig into that. But just like me, like my brain is always a million places at once. So as I'm reading your experiences, I'm sort of like paralleling it to things I've gone through. And I think back to my early music lessons. My guitar teacher, I've always been tall. He was a shorter guy. He's still a shorter guy, but he was a god to me. And to be very realistic with myself, I wasn't paying much mind to, the pentatonic scale and major chords and things like that. Cause I was like a 13-year-old punk kid who was just like, tell me about, the girls you're hanging out with. But he made me feel as this gawky, lanky, awkward kid, I could be a rock star like him. And that unzipped the potential to take this shy, awkward kid and allow me to become the musician I became. Our experience was clearly musical, but it was inspirational. And I think that's a coach. I think a coach inspires, and you explain it so well. When you were in Rwanda, what was the initial pushback of this concept as you were dealing with this? I'm sure when you went in there and said all that, they're like, oh, I don't know. And then how did you sort of prove it along the way like a rock star?
Jeez, that's a great question. So the pushback came from the Mary Finaro, and she was like, "It can't happen." But they were so accepting in Rwanda; it was almost amazing. Where, Mary said, "This is Michael," and they never met me before. And I guess what took me by surprise was there was no pushback, but there was more like, okay, what am I going to learn? And I brought my own curriculum books that I use at Rock Out Loud and my other schools, and I put them on the table, and there was food on the table, and those books went quicker than the food. The food stayed there, and they took my books because they were so eager to learn, and it was just an amazing feeling. And when I've gotten that sense within the first 5 minutes of my time there, which I flew then. I think I arrived on a Friday night, the next morning, Saturday, for their Saturday shows. I was there. They wanted to eat up everything that I had to say to them or teach them or show them. But when I went up to the Minister of Education and his entourage, we're talking about PhDs, doctors of education who run Rwanda's educational system for the country, not just for the schools, but like for the country. And I went up to them and I had to present my pilot. I went and researched the heck out of them, by the way. And the main Minister of Education, Dr. Gaspard, he actually played trumpet, and he talked about and spoke about in some of his interviews online how playing trumpet and teaching them how practice was so important in preparation and how that became a life skill. I actually took everything that I was doing inside this pilot program, sort of massaged it to explain to him that everything that you're going to learn in music is a life skill, practice, and then, commitment. Those are life skills that you're going to take on well past you're playing the guitar, drums, bass, djembe, whatever it is. And when he understood that, he said, all right, I got to see this in action. And he actually said, I'll be there tomorrow. And this was the first time in 7 years. Mary's like, I don't know if he's going to be here, but we should prepare anyway. I'm like, okay, let's prepare. And I remember it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and an entourage of black Escalades are coming down a little trail to a hut. And here's little Mike surrounded by 16 guys and one girl. And I'm doing this presentation. And 3 hours later, the Minister of Education gets up and says, the country of Rwanda, they don't need teachers, they need coaches. Michael, you're right. And when he said that, I was like, holy smokes. That's when I knew it's not a cultural thing. This is a universal thing. And the people of Rwanda, beautiful people who are accepting, they're open-minded. They don't close themselves out if they don't get it. They just want to learn. They have such a passion for learning. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
It's awesome. And reading through it and just hearing your story, like that must have been so validating. Like, not that you would have doubted it to begin with, but just in another country where everything is sort of different right off the bat, for them to be like, this guy's got it. And it shows, like, right from the title of the book, From Teacher to Coach and Why You Never Want to Be a Teacher, like, boom, right there. It's like, what is this? Like my book, this book, Shreds, like, the title doesn't really tell you what the book is about at all. And maybe it was a marketing error on my end, but your thing, like, your mission statement's right there from the beginning. And it's so cool to kind of read the whole experience. There's a particular story that I enjoyed with a girl named Nadine. So I'd like for you to share that story and sort of entice people. And please click that link below, guys. We want you can pre-order it. This interview, you'll be seeing this on Monday. What is it? The 20th. So it's
Oh, that'd be awesome.
yeah, it doesn't come out on Monday. So you guys are going to see this for all week. Pre-order it. Let's get him that bestseller. Let's make it rock.
Oh,
Tell
like
me the
yours.
story.
Yours was bestseller for some time, right?
Yes, it was, dude. It's all the. I feel goofy saying this stuff, but yeah, and it's a cool feeling. I think a book is such a cool legacy tool just to exist. Like this is long when we're gone. These things will
Yes.
be out there, and people will be learning. And it's like if they take one sentence and it changes their life, it's awesome. I think every person in the education space would take tremendous value from reading your book because it's that little shift. And I think there's still like I have, people who work for me who are educators in public schools or private
Mhm.
schools, and in that space they have to be teachers. They don't have a choice. There's a curriculum mandated, fed down to them, and all of a sudden they come here and they're free to be them and do what they do best and bring the best out of people. So tell me that Nadine story, because I thought that was so
Sure.
cool.
Absolutely. So there's two parts to the Nadine story. The first part was it was a Saturday, and I remember it was maybe it was a Saturday, it was a Monday, but they were doing Michael Jackson's song, and they love Michael Jackson over there. It's just an amazing feeling to know that this guy who was probably not around when it was like 8, 9, 10-year-old kids. So that was beautiful. So this girl Nadine sits down next to a child playing the piano, and she's a brand new student, the first time that she's there. And she's just like looking around. She's dazing. She's not looking at the piano. Her hands are not on the piano, but she's sitting next to a piano player as they're doing this Michael Jackson song. And as I'm watching it, I said to the coach, I said, the teacher at the time, I said, "Is that girl? Is she a piano player?" And he kept saying, "No, she's a beginner." I said, "But look, she's no, she's a beginner." And we're going through the song, and the song's over. I said, "Hey, that girl over there, she was singing. Yeah, Mike, she's a beginner. Don't worry about it. She's going to learn piano tomorrow." I said, "But she's singing." And he said, "But she's a beginner." So I took her by the arm so gently, and she was such. I have a picture of her. She's a beautiful little girl, and beautiful smile. And I said, "Would you come up to the front?" Because the singers were singing up front. I said, "Would you sing up front?" So she was so shy. She said no, but she didn't understand what I was saying. So they translated, and she said, "Ah." So and I'm like, "Come on, you can do it." And they said it in the language. So we bring her up front, and we play this song again. And I think it was Heal the World. And we started to do this performance, and she started to sing it note for note, and her voice was absolutely beautiful. And they put her in the middle of two of the more experienced singers, and they're all kind of moving together and they're singing, and her voice is just amazing, her smile. And at the end of the song, everybody started to clap for her, and everybody looked at her and hugged her. It's the first day at this piano lesson, and they all hugged her, and I'm smiling, I'm looking at her, I'm so proud. And I said, "You see, you got to look for the things that some people don't see. And those things are usually the things teachers don't see. As a coach, we have to look to find their learning language, what they love to do." And they really got it. And I say to them all the time, there's probably a million instances and times that you're going to see instances like this where people don't go out of their way to find their particular place to sit, their seat on the bus, right? You got to look for them. And she might not have been a piano player. She was probably a singer, and now she's a singer. We found her voice. You're sitting her down next to a piano thinking she wants to learn piano, but I'm watching what her mannerisms are. I'm watching her sing and mouth the words. That's why we should bring her up front. And doing that, I mean, that she became the most popular kid that whole week. And she was, friendly, and she was playing with everybody. It was the most incredible transformation that happened in a 3.5 minute song, Rob. It was amazing. Just amazing.
It's so cool, man. I think like that story does a great job of illustrating exactly this concept,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people, again, in the education space, they are sort of living within these parameters of what they think it should be, or what they were taught it should be, or what it was handed down to them. Like I'm of the generation where everyone told us to be teachers. They all told us to go to college and become teachers. And all of a sudden in 2003 or four, as all of us were graduating, there was a million teachers.
Yeah.
And it was oversaturated. And lucky for me, I went to the music route, and here I am. But everyone who works for me, I think it's one of the coolest things. I think you do it at your schools as well. You give them the opportunity to sort of find their own rhythm and connect and have that space within each lesson, each interaction, to be able to, oh, what's that? Boom. Now it's unlocked. Now we can run a million miles in that direction. And it might be different the next time.
That's
With
right.
that ability, just if they're having like what we do in my school, if someone's having a good day, we're going to write a song about it. If they're having a bad day, we're going to write a song about it.
That's
But
a great idea,
just
Rob.
kind of just
Yeah.
take snapshots of those moments. But I think that's that inspiration part, and that's 100% what a coach would do. So
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So 7 chapters.
Yes, seven is the lucky number. So 7 chapters and 7 days in the week. You know, there's always some. You know, seven's for whatever reason is my number. You know, the 7 continents, the 7 seas. So there's 7 chapters, but the first through 6 chapters are all my experiences for the 6 days in Rwanda. The 7th chapter is the most important, and I dedicated this chapter to a teacher from my junior high school that I didn't even know if she was still around anymore, but I dedicated it to giving grace to those coaches. And I think that's the one thing that's really forgotten, is to give thanks to those coaches. And as I was thinking about chapter 7, and my thought of writing this book was for years, but it really didn't solidify until Rwanda. But there was an instance that happened with me in junior high school with a Mr. Kaplan, who was my art teacher. And we were doing a collage, and the collage was beautiful. You would draw something out, and then you'd take pieces of a magazine, and the colors of that picture in the magazine would be like a mountain or the sea or the sun. So you make this beautiful colored collage. And I was in 6th grade. I just finished it, and I thought it was done. And I was sitting at my lunchroom table, and here comes Mr. Kaplan with my collage under his arm, and he taps me on the shoulder. And I look back, and I kind of jolted. I'm like, "What are you doing? You're my art teacher. I'm in lunch." He's like, "Michael, this is the most incredible picture. The collage is perfect, but you had just put a little yellow flower on this mountain, and you'll get a 99. Right now it's 96, and 96 is great, but if you just put that little flower there, right there on the left side, it's going to be a 99. I said, "I could do that, but why not 100? He goes, "Michael, nothing's perfect." So I did that. And that story remained with me. That happened when I was, let's call it 11 years old. That was like 40 years ago. I mean, how do things happen like that 40 years and you still remember that one episode that was probably 3 minutes long? And I wanted to give grace to Mr. Kaplan because it always stuck with me, because you can give 100% and not be perfect. And I use that lesson in Rocky, Rocky Balboa, Rocky 1 gives 100% and he loses the fight, but he gave 100%. And that's because nothing's perfect. And I wanted to thank Mr. Kaplan. So for years I was looking for him, and then Facebook's a thing. So naturally you go on to Facebook. Hey, can anybody tell me where I can find Mr. Kaplan? I really want to speak to him. And all of a sudden, I get this message from one of his old colleagues and said, "Hey, Mike, he died about 7 years ago. He passed." And I was terribly upset, at which point it was in a Facebook post for Brooklyn. And then the list of all of these people who were giving grace to this amazing gentleman, thanking him for all the work that he's done with him and inspiring him, making him a great role model and being a mentor. And I said to myself, holy smokes, what this guy would do to actually see all the people he's touched. And chapter 7 is give grace now. Don't wait to become a eulogy from somebody that you'll know. Never hear how grateful you are to them. Send a message, call them, send a text, write them an email, send them a letter. But now is now. Do it now before it's too late. And there was another teacher in junior high, Mrs. Pettit, and I said, I have to find Mrs. Pettit. She made me feel so special, so special. And I found her. She happened to live in New Jersey. I invited her over to my house for chapter 7. I said, "Mrs. Pettit, this is your chapter 7. And I interviewed her and gave her grace. And when I announced her that she was at my house, the hundreds of people that thanked her, who became artists, who have their own art displays. They have, it's amazing that became these people who are like in the art community, like the top of their community. And she had no idea. She wasn't on Facebook. She didn't believe it. And she was just, if I to tell you what I felt by looking at her face when she was reading it, and it made me want to cry. Like, why wait until she's gone? Tell people now. That's the very last sentence of the book. Tell them now. And that's the reason why I finished that book on that chapter. And that's why there's 7 chapters, 6 days in Rwanda and 7 to give grace.
I love that. I love that so much. I think it's coming back. but for a long, long time, no one knew how to say thank you. No one knew how to.
Yeah.
Everyone is so, the expectation is to be so far into the future and in so many places at once. But in this moment, it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's gone. And I loved that the book ended in that way. I loved everything leading up to it. You put out, here's why this thing should be, here's proof of concept, boom. But then when you get to that last part, you flip the whole thing around to sort of something so personal and so touching. You know, if anyone were to look into who you are and all the incredible things you've accomplished in the music education world, entrepreneurial world with the card chords and the Rock Out Loud, it's just so many cool things to see you just be just a guy flipping around and giving the opportunity to lead by example almost and say, this is me showing what being coached did to me.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautifully done.
And coaches love the legacy. People think that it's about the money. It's about how much they can have. You know, like you said earlier, you know, strip everything away, the guitars, the watches, whatever it is. You know, you're going to leave an impression. Your son's going to give his great grandkids your book, and they're going to know everything about you and the guy that you were, and they're going to feel you. You know, that's what's so great about it. And coaches just love to be thanked. They do it for the legacy. That's the way I look at it anyway.
Completely. And I think, you know, this word needs to be spread, screaming from the mountaintops, because got to change that perception. It's not just the football coach. It's not just the wrestling coach. It's
Right.
anybody and everybody who's inspiring someone and getting to know them. And it's awesome, man. This was everything I hoped it would be, this book, and more. Cause like I said,
Thank you.
I heard
Thanks,
this,
Rob.
the conversation back in April, and I hope to see you in January out there again, and we'll get a drink this time, which we didn't get to do last time.
Yes.
And yeah, dude, this is awesome. So I want everyone to check it out. Click that link. And I'd like to end this, Mike, by doing the way I end every interview and hitting you with some rapid fire questions that have
Oh
nothing to do
boy.
with the book, but have to do with music. Are you down?
I'm down.
All right. So the way this works is I'm going to read you a series of questions, which I'm going to put in front of me here because I don't have them memorized anymore. And it's one or the other.
Sure.
You can say one or the other. You don't have to justify your answer because most of the time the correct answer is both. And that's
Okay.
you got to pick
fair.
one. If you want to justify it, that's okay. I won't challenge you, except for one of them I will, but hopefully we're going to be on the same page. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Mostly guitar stuff because we're guitar players. Humbucker or single coil pickup?
Humbucker, no doubt.
Perfect. Okay. If you're using a humbucker, would you prefer a Les Paul style guitar or an SG style guitar?
Les Paul, never SG.
Okay, that's the right answer. Good. That was not the one that I challenged you, but that is the right answer. You can shred a bit. So if you had the options, you prefer 22 or 24 frets?
22. Always 22.
So
Never
just
24.
Les Paul. Just give me a Les Paul. Okay.
Yep.
For your guitar pick, do you want a thin, medium, or thick pick?
Thick.
Good.
Teardrop.
That's the right answer too. Yes, I like that. It needs to make a sound. You can't hear it, but it needs to make a
Yes.
sound when you drop it. 9s, 10s, or 11s?
10s.
All right, dude, we're the same guy. Perfect.
Yeah.
If you're grabbing a bass, is it a P bass or a jazz bass?
A jazz bass. Good question. I would say a jazz bass.
Okay. That's both, again, is the right answer, but yeah, I like jazz as well. Because you're a Les Paul guy, I know the answer, but if you rosewood or maple fret.
Oh, rosewood. Who would ever want Eddie Van Halen would use a
Okay.
maple, but yeah, rosewood all the way. The warmth
Okay.
of that rosewood. Oof.
If you're grabbing an acoustic, would you prefer a Martin or a Taylor?
Taylor. Got my Taylor right here.
Yeah, I got one over here too. They're awesome. They're so snappy and cool.
The best in the world.
All right, for your amplifier, would you prefer the gain to come from the amp, or you want to put pedals in front of it to push it?
Never use pedal. Gains right from the amp. I use Soldano SL100s, and I wouldn't use anything between it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. All right. So then the answer is in this one: 6L6 or EL34.
6L6.
Okay. And then,
Wow, this is like I feel like I'm taking one of those truth tests.
now you're nailing it, dude. Like I swear, I'm talking to myself, so it's okay. This is easy. We don't have to fight. So 100 watt or 25 watt, 100 watt.
100 watt.
Delay or reverb?
Oh, reverb. Spring.
It's funny because up until probably 10 years ago, I never used reverb ever. I was brought up on Metallica and everything was got with the noise gate. And all of a sudden I accidentally put the reverb on one time and I was like, whoa, my note, everything's like, it's hanging for a second. So
Yeah.
Phaser or chorus?
Phaser.
Okay. That's the right answer. That's the one we could argue over. Wah pedal or whammy pedal?
Wah.
Okay. Right answer again. All right. Now here's the last 5. This is where it gets real hard. Beatles or Stones?
Beatles. Oh, wait a minute. That's a tough one. The Stones. I love the Stones. The Rock. Yeah, I would say the Stones. If I had to pick a concert, it would be the Stones.
It doesn't discredit the Beatles, but that's
No,
okay.
it doesn't. Yeah.
If you were to think of the Beatles, would it be John or Paul?
I hate to say with the Paul people, but I like John's writing and bridge work a lot more. So John.
That's okay. I like John's writing better. I think I would fight with him if we were hanging out, though.
100%. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
What do you got here? Bowie or Dylan?
Ooh, Bowie.
Zeppelin or Floyd?
Zeppelin. Zeppelin against anybody? Zeppelin.
Okay.
Oh, wait, are we on the same page on that one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Jimmy.
I was trying to reach on that one. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No. You're just straight down the line. I don't even know why I'm asking. I know the answers. All right, two more. Pearl Jam or Nirvana?
Nirvana they were guys that changed the whole scheme of things. Pearl Jam were better musicians, so it's half and half. I would say it's a balance. Pearl Jam were innovators. I'm sorry, Nirvana was an innovator. Pearl Jam were a little bit better at the musicianship.
That's a very fair answer, and probably the best way I've heard that articulated. Some people get very passionate about that. Had you asked me 5 years ago, I would have said Pearl Jam and not even blinked. And all of a sudden I found Nirvana. Like I was like talking to the students here. I'm like, you ever heard of this band Nirvana? They're pretty good. And they're like, what?
Yeah, they're innovators. They broke the glam rock issues.
All right. And the last one, the most polarizing of all, Hagar or Roth?
God, I got to say Hagar, better songwriter, better singer, Roth, better entertainer. Saw them both live, but I got to say Hagar.
My son is born on Sammy Hagar's birthday, so I have to go that direction. I just got tickets.
If he wasn't, what would you say?
So my first Van Halen, super quick tangent, my first Van Halen experience was the Greatest Hits album in 95. So it had equal parts Hagar and Roth songs, plus the two new Roth songs, which no one likes, but I loved those songs. And then my first time seeing Van Halen was Van Halen 3 with Gary Cherone.
Oh, I saw that. That was terrible. Oh my God.
But in 1998, me seeing Eddie Van Halen, I'm sort of agnostic of it. It's Van Halen, and they're three different things, and they're three different in their own way. I like the songwriting with Sammy Hagar better. I like Sammy Hagar. I just got the tickets for the thing he's doing with Satriani and Michael Anthony next summer.
Yeah.
So, all right, Mike, brother, thank you so much for this. I'm so excited for everyone to check out this book. I'm excited to have my physical copy. Thank you for spending the time here with me, and I seriously encourage everyone to check out Mike's book. Click that link. Let's blow it up.
Thank you so much. If I had the chance, by the way, next time we're going to switch rooms. I want to be in the room with all the PRSs, the Strats, and the Les Pauls, and you can sit here behind the mirror.